What's going on, guys? It's Vinny here, and today we're at a customer's house. We're going to replace this Andersen 2000 series storm door. The issue here was the top glass actually shattered. The customer just wants to replace the door, so we're not actually going to be doing the whole frame, but just trying to replace the door itself. All right, and over here I have the whole door laid out. We're just going to basically be installing the hinge side, and we're going to have to drill some holes for the hardware to go in, so stay tuned. I'm gonna peel this stripping on the side. That's that stripping that covers these screws. There's a couple screws along that edge, and then there's a few more screws along the inside in here. And then it looks like that piston that holds the door to close slowly. So we'll actually disconnect that first. We're going to begin to remove all the screws on the inside of this. All right, all those interior screws are out. Now we can just remove the few on the front. All right, that should be the last one. All right, and that's how you'll remove just the door. All right, and so we're gonna leave everything else here because the customer just wants to replace the door. They're not too worried about the frame. They're actually gonna sell this place soon, so everything here already looks pretty much prepared. We're gonna leave this bracket on here for the door piston here, so we can just attach our new piston to the door and then latch it right in, and we already have our holes and everything already marked. All right, so since we're just doing the door, we're gonna have to make sure we use just the right mounting hardware here. The pink bag that should have our hinge and the sweep mounting screws. The sweep is the bottom part that goes on that bottom of your door. It has that rubber gasket. Your hinges are here. It's like this whole thing. So that's going to be our pink bag we need. And then the yellow bag will be the screws to the house. And the closer, the piston that I was showing you guys earlier, will be in the green bag there. And we have the handle set here. This is the nickel style. All right, so we have the two doors side by side, and the instructions say to get your new hinge, and we're gonna line up the bottom hole of the top side of the door with the pre-drilled hole that's on the door. So what I mean by that is, here's the old door. This is the top of the door. You can flip that hinge rail up, and if you look down here, you see where the two bolts go through the hinge. That and that. If you look at our new door, you'll see those two screws that are already in there, and then there's a pre-drilled hole there. So what you're trying to do is get the hinge here, and this is the bottom hole. Again, this is the top of the door. So you get that bottom hole and line it up with the pre-drilled hole there, and then we're going to mark the other hinge hole there and all the other hinge holes down the rest of the door. All right, in that pink bag, we're gonna have an assortment of screws here. To mount the hinges to the door, we're just gonna use these silver self-tapper screws, and it comes with a drill bit in the kit to drill the other holes for the hinges. So I'm actually gonna put a screw on the top of that hinge and one all the way down at the bottom through those two pre-drilled holes on the door, and then that will help align everything else straight, so then I can mark and drill the rest of the holes. So I got the top hinge over here, the bottom hole matching up with that pre-drilled hole. Now we'll work our way down to the bottom. All right, so our bottom pre-drilled hole doesn't actually line up exactly with this hinge. It's down here. It's just about a 1/4 inch off. So we're gonna actually hold this nice and tight up here and mark all the rest of the holes, and then we'll get to drilling them in there so we can mount this hinge to the door. And as I'm marking my holes, I'm making sure I push the hinge flush into the door. You'll see what I mean, it kind of latches in. So we got all of our holes marked here now. Just gonna remove the hinges. Now we can just work with the door here, and I just have all these little holes that we marked, so we're gonna just put that drill bit in there, get those holes going. And you You want to make sure when you're drilling through that you just go down right through the metal and no further. You don't want to go too far here. You want to make sure you get all that metal out of that trackway there. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to get my hinges and I'm going to mount this top hinge up at the front. We're going to put that on first and then we'll go down to the bottom, secure it in there with 2 screws, and then we can put the rest. All right, and that looks good. So now you just want to look at that gap here. Everything looks even all the way down. And the top of this hinge seems to be flush with the door, the exact same way the old one was. All right, now we're going to flip over both doors and just be careful of that hinge. Might be a good idea to get some of those metal shavings off the cardboard. Don't scratch the new door. All right, now we're going to work on installing the door sweep, which is this bottom piece here with that rubber gasket. So here's our new one. Just want to make sure everything looks the same. It does. And so the left side edge of this is flush with the door, like that. And I always just like to measure it because sometimes, you know, the door is mounted in a frame that's not straight. So you can adjust the bottom reveal of your door by adjusting this plate here. So I measure down just to see. So we have 2 inches there, and then this side looks to be 2 1/4. So this bottom sweep is slightly on an angle. So I get the new door sweep and we're gonna push this onto the door. We're gonna push it flush in and flush with this outside left corner, just like the old one is. And there's gonna be 2 screw holes slots here that you can mark. I'm gonna mark it right at the bottom of this screw hole here and at the bottom of that one. So if we put the screw in there and we need to adjust this, you can slide the rail, you know, about a 1/2 inch adjustment on both sides. So that's why we mark the bottom part of this and not the top, because if you did the top, there's nowhere for it to go. So we're gonna mark the bottom and then we'll get that drilled out. The bottom. All right, and again, when you drill these, just go through the metal, but don't go any further than that. You don't want to go any further than just making this initial hole. All right, there's our 2 holes. And now out of that take bag, there was 2 white screws. That's what these are for. Make sure there's no metal in between here and make sure that's clean. We're gonna line up our holes that we just drilled, and you can put in your white screws. Very gently, you don't have to go too fast or too far, because if you do, you'll strip them out. All right, and now I'm gonna barely snug them up so it doesn't slide around. And then when we hang the door, we can go back and adjust this with a screwdriver. All right, now under that hinge that we just installed, you're supposed to also put this plastic plate, and there's 2 screws that come along with the kit. So we're gonna go ahead and flip that hinge over and install this real quick. All right, now we're gonna get ready to do the door handles on here. We're gonna have to drill some holes. We're gonna flip the door back on this side. All right, so we're gonna do the handle now, and it comes with a handle set drill kit, comes with the spade bit, and here's the markings for where the holes are gonna get drilled. So let me show you exactly how we're gonna do that. So the top of the door is up there, bottom is down there, and it says to get this arrow here where that half circle is, and you're gonna match that up with the pre-drilled hole over top of this slot for the door lock handle. So we're gonna match that up with the hole right there, and then it says to mark the line right above it. I'm gonna mark that line, and now it's saying to fold the entire template over this hole, and you're gonna want to align the top of the paper with that line that you just made, and then you're gonna want to tape it down. Just gonna use a little bit of painter's tape here. All right. We got our template taped on both sides. So it says to punch each hole here in the center. So I'm gonna try to do it with this. right, so we center punched these. I'm gonna flip the door over and just do that real quick on the other side. Next step, it says to pre-drill all these holes with your 1/8 inch drill bit. It says do not try to drill all the way through, but just make the holes on one side and then flip the door and then make the holes on the other side, and that should ensure that everything's gonna be straight. And you know what? I'm gonna peel this back so I can see my holes. All right, so there's your holes. Everything looks like it matches up. So let me flip it over, and we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. All right, so we got all of our holes marked out and pre-drilled with the 1/8 inch drill bit. So you can look at your template and it'll show you which holes you need to drill. So you need a 7/16 drill bit for the top and the bottom. And then we have 3 13/16 holes. So we're gonna leave this thing here so we can first use our 13/16 drill bit, and we will drill the 3 holes here, so you can see that one, and that one. And you just want to go through the one side, and then you'll flip the door and do the other side. Now the last hole here, you're gonna just want to be a little careful here because this one can catch, so we're gonna try our best to keep it straight. Cool. Now we get a shop vac and we can get that metal out. All right, now for the top and the bottom hole, it's the 7/16, but I don't see a 7/16 included with this kit. So I have a stepper bit here, and we're gonna go down to the 7/16 mark on it and drill those 2 holes. And I always double check. Got one more here. 7/16. All right, 7/16. So let's do a quick shop vac, get that metal out. Then it says in the instructions to use a deburr tool if there's any burrs that may be in these holes from drilling it. Everything here seems pretty good. Should be good there. Let's do one more quick shop vac. Next, we're going to install part of the door lock assembly. So you're going to have 2 pieces, 2 plates that basically the locks and handles go through. And on the outside part of the door, the part that faces like outside, is going to be the one that looks like this with no holes on it. And that's going to go in that hole right there. And then the other plate is going to go on the back side where the holes are here and here. And you're gonna have 2 longer screws that will go through the holes to screw that all together. And the heads of them look to be round. So we're gonna go ahead and do that real quick. All right, and we have our plate on. So this is the front side of the door. This is the back side of the door here. And the screws just go through right there and attach to the plate. And it says to leave this loose for right now. The next part of this is gonna be to grab your lock case here. And we're gonna position that to be just like this. So if this is the outside of the door, the flat part of this spring end is going to be facing outside, and on this piece here it also shows up, so that will go towards the top of the door. Now in the instructions that are included with this, if you have a left or a right side door, if this latch is facing the wrong way, and it shows you how to disassemble this, and then you can rotate this the other way, which is in the instructions down here. The only thing you'll have to do, I believe, is remove this screw, which takes off the faceplate, and then you should be able to flip this the other way and re-put that screw back in with the plate, and you should be good. Next step, it says to grab your outside handle. So if the top of the door is that way, the bottom of the door is that way, and this is the outside, the positioning of this handle should look like this, where it sweeps up. And so it says to get this rod here and insert it, and then you're going to want to use the Allen key that's included and tighten this down onto that rod. Now it does mention to make sure of proper positioning with this rod in here, so you can make sure that flip away feature with the door will work correctly. So you want the notch to be pointing to the latch bolt. And so on the latch itself, if you look inside this hole, there's like a notch on that side, and if you look at this metal piece here, there's a notch cut in it. So we're gonna put that notch lined up with the notch in the lock case. And so if this was to sit in the door, it would be like that. So we're just gonna tighten down this little Allen key here. All right, next it's saying to insert the lock case into the door here, and then we can begin to put these 2 little screws in, and that will come in this blue bag here with all the other hardware for this. And I just like to finish these by hand. Make sure everything's good. Next, we're gonna get our lock cylinder. There's a long screw. We're gonna install that straight in. I have to finagle that a little bit to get that all the way down. All right, you're gonna have to stick your hand under the door and lift it up a little bit so you can center that lock. And then you can get your screw in there. So you're gonna see that this sits up just a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and install our screw here. And I'm just holding the door up with my other hand because that lock will sit through the other side just a little bit. All right, that looks good. And you should be able to open and close that lock. All right, next we're going to install this self-storing door window handle kit. Basically, this attaches to the top of the door up here. This is the top, and it's gonna be able to move that top window down where there's a screen under it. There's some pre-drilled holes here already. So you see one there and one there. And it's saying to get a 7/64 drill bit, and we're gonna open up those holes a little bit, and then we can attach it with these 2 screws that it came with. First, I pulled this window down a little bit. It's a little tight. So it's spring loaded, so I slid it down like that, and then I just put my latch on here and made sure that those 2 pre-drilled holes line up, which it does look like they do. And here's a better angle. So this bottom part of this actually looks like it's flush with the trim of the window. And if I move this away, you can see the holes. So we're gonna pre-drill those just a little bit bigger. And it says do not go all the way through. All right, great. So once you have those pre-drilled like that, clear off any metal, and then you can put the latch right in place. And you're gonna get a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're gonna gently put these in, and it states do not over tighten this. All right, we're just gonna snug it up. Don't want too much on that. All right. And now it slides up, and you should be able to unlatch it and slide it down like that. All right, so now before we go and hang this door up here, I'm gonna install some of these little door spacers that are gonna help us just keep the door straight when we're trying to screw it in. Here we have the door. This will be the inside of the door here, and we have our door sweep right down there. So what we're gonna do real quick is attach this down onto the bottom door sweep screw. So I'm gonna loosen that screw up right there. And then this is supposed to slide on over the whole door sweep itself. Just like that. And then we could just tighten that down just so it doesn't go anywhere. And here is just a closer angle so you can see exactly how that thing sits on there. All right, and then it says to install the side latch clip over here. It says to do it about 6 inches up. So about 6 inches. Be right around here. So we'll do that. Looks good. All right. So I ended up removing that side clip because this is a little bit of a different installation since we already have the frame in there. So it looks like I'm just going to use that bottom one. And we didn't put our handle in yet. So what you can do is put it in temporarily and push it down, and that should open the door for you. So now we can install the rest of the screws right along the inside of that frame. I'm gonna detach that orange clip down at the bottom, loosen that screw, and then this will pop right off. And we can go ahead and tighten that screw up. All right, now we're gonna attach the handles. So we already have our outside handle put together. We're gonna put that in first. But before we do, there's 2 of these little nylon washers. One goes on each handle. So we'll put that on the handle first, and then we'll stick that through the door here. Put our other nylon washer on, the other handle in, and then you can tighten it down with your Allen key. Once you have both your handles bolted in, next thing is going to be to tighten up this plate with the 2 Phillips head screws. You don't need to go too crazy with it. You just want to make sure everything looks straight. And then once these are tight, you want to make sure everything functions properly. Everything seems good. We're going to test if it latches. Everything latches good. So now I'm going to go ahead and just make sure all these get tightened up. All right, now that we have all the screws along that outside hinge bolted all the way in, we can get our new plastic trim, and this thing's gonna snap right in there. So we're gonna line up our edges first. Over the top. Match it down at the bottom. And it should snap right into place. Might have to just push on it a little bit. And you'll hear it click into place once that's all the way in. And it should look just like that once you're all done. So in the yellow bag of screws that is used to hang the door with the hinges, there's also these little plastic things that you can stick in the pre-drilled holes on the door. There's one down at the bottom and one up at the top. So I'm gonna take out these little plastic plugs and put those in there real quick. Here's just a close-up of one of those plugs. All right, so the next step of this is going to be to install these door pistons here. This is the new one, and just to compare it to the old one, they are the same. You're gonna have the angle and a pin, and there's actually 2 pins. There's a long pin and a short pin. The short pin looks to go onto this longer elbow, so we're gonna put that in first. And then on this other bracket, we're gonna put that in with the long pin. And I'm just matching this up with what the old door has on it. We can make sure everything works just as it used to. Should look like that once we're all finished. Kit comes with this orange piece where you'll open up the door just a little bit like that, and then you'll slide that orange piece on. Whoops. So you'll clip that piece on there just like that, and then to release this you can open it more and let it close on there, and that's going to give you the perfect spacing for when we go to attach it on the inside. All right, so I'm going to take this apart real quick to show you guys. Since we already have our bracket installed, we will first pop this back piece out, and there's 2 hooks on the top part that go in first, and then it sits flush in there, and then you're going to have a long screw that will go through the whole thing. Now we can put the rod through with the pin, and now I will pull this open, snap our orange clip on there like that, and then I'm gonna line it up over here on the door to make sure everything looks good. So we have our orange clip installed here, and the door's shut. Now you're gonna mark your holes. All right, so you just wanna go just through the bevel, no further than there. Don't have to push that hard either. These holes open up pretty easy. Feels like this is like a vinyl. Then you should be able to get these 2 screws here, which should be able to go right in there. Now we're gonna close the door, and then we'll bolt up the piston. Move that out of the way. And you don't need to over tighten those. Cool, now you can open the door, remove the orange clip, and adjust that door sweep. All right, now we can adjust the door closer speed. So you're gonna open the door and let it close. And you can see it just closes at the last second. So there is an adjustment with the speed of how fast the door will close. There's a Phillips head screw right here. If you want the door to close faster, you would turn this to the left or counterclockwise. And if you wanted to slow down the speed and make the door close a little bit slower, then you would screw it in or to the right, which would be clockwise. And so we'll screw that in just a little bit, and then let's see how it closes. So that might be too much. It does close, but I want it to be a little bit quicker than that, so we'll just adjust that again. And you want to make sure it latches when it closes. All right. Great. All right guys, and that's pretty much it. That's how you install an Andersen 2000 series door. So if this video helped you guys out, please leave me a like. If you guys have any questions at all, leave them down in the comments. I'll get back to you. And if you're looking for more of this kind of content, then hit that subscribe button because there'll be plenty more videos coming your way. Appreciate you guys sticking through with me on this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.